And we are back with more thoughts and players. Now we are moving into the segment that always follows the break. We love it, you love it. It is, was it worth it? And for this segment, I'm going to be taking the reins a bit because I'm going to discuss a game that I have discussed more than once, including a bit earlier in this level, and that is Mount and Blade Bannerlord. So Mount and Blade Bannerlord came out in early access March 30th of this year. It is the follow-up to Mount and Blade Warband, which came out 10 years ago, at least, I think. You return to Calradia. It's been, divvied up into a bunch of different empires. There's Valandians, there's the Empire. There's several different segments of the Empire: the Northern Empire, Southern Empire, Western Empire, and different stuff like that. And you're basically tasked with, in this, doing what you did in Warband, which is going out there, either fighting for different factions, rising in the ranks, gaining renown and fame, and eventually starting your own kingdom, having your own towns and own castles, building your own armies, and whatnot. Getting married, having children, all that other stuff. You want to do that too. Or if you just want to be, someone that goes around and kicks butt and takes names, you can do that too. So I got this game the day it released because it had something going on Steam where if you owned Warband, you got an extra 5 or 10% off. So where it released at 50, I believe I got it for 40. So that's kind of where I'll be coming from it from a valuation standpoint. So some things that I like about it, some things that I think they improved, because obviously when you have almost a dozen years to come out with a sequel, you've probably improved some things. So besides the fact that the graphics look better, to me noticeably better, the combat feels more gratifying. It's tighter, especially things like archery, the bows. It feels like you have a bit more control over them. The combat, as far as the melee, they added some depth to it in regards to, if you move, how you attack someone, if you attack them from the left side or the right side, from high or from low, and it's all based upon where you aim and how your character moves when you're fighting with them. But the combat there, I know a lot of people were saying they were having some difficulty with it because they did make it a bit more difficult, but overall it's pretty good. It's the same. The one thing they did is they made the sieges more difficult. Before, in Warband, if you want to siege a town or siege a castle, you gather your army, and then you go to where you want to siege, and then you're going to say, hey, we're going to siege you. And then you start the attack, and you either go up steps or you climb a ladder, and then you fight on the walls. Well, now they have it where you have to develop siege equipment. So that could be catapults, that could be battering rams or something like that. And it helps expedite the process of the sieges. Also, they have it placed now where inherently when you're in a siege, or if you're experiencing someone sieging you, the defenders have an innate bonus. So the defenders are always in the best position to defend their town, defend their castle, unless they're outnumbered tremendously. So that makes sieges more strategic, which therefore makes them a bit more involved. I think that works. I think if you're going to siege a town, it should probably take some time. That just seems like it makes sense. And also the trade and merchant mechanics they've done. It's more thought out. Now they have it where every major city usually has one or two minor cities that also support the trade that go through it. And those minor cities usually have a certain resource they have. So it could be iron ore, it could be linen or something like that. So if you go to a major city and decide to build a workshop, basically a business that creates a good, and you have to use a combination of these resources, you have to be thoughtful about what you put in the town. Because if you're trying to create a metal shop or something, or like a blacksmith or something like that, and you don't really have easy access to iron ore, it makes making money a lot more difficult. It's actually a lot better to, if that's the case, set up a blacksmith somewhere place that does have iron ore access, and then sell them in that town that doesn't have a lot of iron ore access. And therefore you can market your resources or your products at a markup, make more money. It's a lot more thoughtful than previous ways. and doing it in other games, especially in Warband. So those are all the good things about it that I really enjoy. I mostly play the single player version of it. What it's really known for is the multiplayer. The multiplayer is great. It is as hectic and chaotic and ridiculous as it's been before. It's really fun. The multiplayer is just fantastic. I mostly don't play multiplayer because I'm someone that likes to play single player, kind of come up with the whole narrative and idea and the story in my head and work on that. So that's why I tend to trend towards single player, but the multiplayer is good. Single player is good. Like I said, spend hours and hours in that. So those are all the good things. What's some of the bad things possibly? Well, remember when I said in March 30th that it released in early access. So it's an early access game. What does that mean? Bugs, fixes that may break things like saves or whatever. That's especially the case when you're like me, because you love PC gaming because of all the mods. So then you put in mods and then they fix stuff and then it breaks the mods, and the broken mods breaks your saves and all that goodness, right? So that's maybe a thing that, The other aspect is, and this is kind of the thing a lot of people talked about, is that it took you a dozen bleeping years to make this game. And at launch, there's some things that we expected that weren't in there. One thing I think I had mentioned in past levels was the wedding, like getting married and stuff. In Warband, there's this really cheesy cutscene that plays when you're marrying your wife and you bring her down and you guys are in front of a bishop or whatever, and you're, and you make this really cheesy kiss and then they cheer, right? And it's so lame and cheesy. And that's beautiful. With this, you just get a wife somewhere, right? You're courting a lady, and then before you know it, boom, boom, you're married, and she's in this city over here that you may or may not have anything involved with. That's not great. There's other things like that need to be fixed, and they're being fixed. They do consistently update the game. I'll give them that, and that's a good thing. So, there's got some problems, and the real question with was it worth it, which is why we created this segment, is because we have to look at it from a valuation standpoint. So, like I said, I paid $40 for this game when it came out, and I think usually it goes for $50. So do I think this game is worth the $50 purchase price? I really, really, really enjoy this game, and I put a lot of time into it. If you are not someone that is absolutely in love with what Warband does, and Mountain Blade does, I don't think it's worth it yet. There's too many things they've got to fix. They've got to streamline some things in there to really make it a lot more accessible to people. But bug fixes, I was having issues. So the PC that I was playing it on runs a GTX 1660. It's obviously not a 2080 Ti, so it's not a beast like that. But it's also not an RX 560 or a GTX 970 or something like that. Like it's pretty medium bar, and I was having issues running things and loading things. So if you're someone that has more of a casual type of PC setup, you're not going to get the best experience out of this game, and that's just mostly poor optimization on the part of Tillworld's Entertainment. I bought it at $40. Is it a good valuation at $40? I would say, for me, it was. I say if you can get this game for $35 or under, it becomes worth it. This may be a bias because when I bought Mountain Blade Warband, I bought it and I didn't pay whatever the high when it first came out price is. And again, this game is in early access. So when it's out of early access, they may boost it up to full price. Most of the time, that doesn't really happen with bigger games. They do that with more so with smaller indie games. But it's gonna be falling in Steam sales. So if you see it in a Steam sale and this thing is going for $34.99, $29.99, I'd say maybe snag it then, because you can lose a lot of time in it. The gameplay, it's janky, but the main core of the game is fun it can be addicting if you're really into it, but it's a very specific kind of game you have to get into. So that's where I'm coming from in regards to, again, if it's the $50 that it usually goes for, nah, it's just not worth it from that standpoint. 40, a little bit more, but I think if you're getting it 35 and under, it's probably good. Was it worth it? But overall, was it worth it? I'd have to say no. That's it for me.
I gotta ask you a question real quick. So you mentioned the cheesiness of the first game.
Yeah.
I had the first game on Xbox or PlayStation 4, whatever one.
Real quick, the first game is actually on Xbox Game Pass right now.
Okay.
Mountain Blade Warband, I mean.
Yeah, so the cheesiness, that's something I loved about the first game. I mostly only played multiplayer, but the graphics being bad was actually a feature for me because they were so bad, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, they were like almost polygon. You know, you're shooting guys in the head and they're falling and they're making hilarious sound effects, you know, as they fall over. And like there's an arena level where you change the camera and you look at the people, they're cardboard cutouts. It's like a PS2 game in terms of graphics. And like you said with the combat, you know, they're swinging their arms around in positions that an arm can't go.
Right.
But the combat's excellent in my opinion.
It's
so
fun.
Do you think because this game shored up some of those things, it did take away from that like that funny factor that kind of helps you enjoy a game a little more?
Well, no, I would say that because the graphics are better,
but they're bad still.
But they're still kind of yeah.
I was worried this game would have good graphics, and that's the only game I worry about that with.
No, my thing is more so that for a lot of the issues and brokenness that it has for a game that took this long to develop, it should have a lot more of those things shored up, and the feature set should be a lot bigger than it is. And like I said, it will eventually get there with all the updates. But we're like, you know, I don't know, 4 or 5 months post-launch.
Right.
So, I don't know.
In 12 years, it doesn't seem like that big of a leap from the first one.
Correct.
To be like, hey, 12 years later, we got this game. It's obviously better, but
right.
It's like, how much better?
Right.
You get 12 years to work on it.
Yeah, 12 years to work on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope it comes to console soon. Because I don't really play on PC. I know the first one did. I don't know how long it's going to take for this one to come out.
Yeah, that's another thing that's really odd to me. Is that because the other one was finally made available on consoles. I think at least 6 or 8 years after it came out on PC. If it was finally available on PS4.
So that's how long I have to wait.
So you might have to wait 6 to 8 years. Yeah, that may be it for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's the beginning of August, but I think I was worried it was going to have good graphics. Maybe the weirdest thing I hear this month.
No, for real. I think that was such a feature of the first game.
Yeah.
Like, Jeremy, do you agree at all? Or is that like the first thing you mod? Like, I need better graphics.
Oh, I didn't mod the graphics at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great. It's like endearing, right?
Yeah. The first game is wacky and odd and
it's just fun.
So jank.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I talked before about that game, The Guild, that I played.
Yep.
Part of its charm is its jankiness.
Right.
So yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, this game has jank too. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But not worth it right now.
If it's $50 on Steam right now, it's not worth it.
In 6 to 8 years when it comes out on PS5, maybe?
Yeah, if it comes out there at $29.99, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and
All
jump
right.
into it.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
Yep.